And as one of my colleagues said early on in this redistricting process, this doesn't really matter because the legislature is going to be drawing its own maps anyway. This is our advice. They can take it or leave it. If it were really that important, I would have heard from leadership. And over the past 4 months, as I was doing this work, I didn't get one email or one phone call from leadership. So I was doing the best I could do in my vacuum, but I did not get any help or assistance from the folks in leadership.
Hello, Vermont. I'm Andy Julo.
And I'm Joanna Grossman.
And this is There's No Way in Creamy.
Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, and welcome to There's No A in Creamy. Here we are. I'm not wearing a flannel shirt today.
No.
I wanted to show some solidarity because the first time we were on video, I wasn't wearing a flannel shirt and you were, and then you were making fun of me for being overdressed.
Right.
And so I wanted to show you that I could roll in a flannel shirt too.
Was that your motivation, or were you trolling me?
I mean, isn't that the same thing, kind of? Yeah.
I don't know. See, one of the problems we discussed about going to video is that, you know this, I only own 3 shirts. And one of them really isn't appropriate for this setting.
Right.
So, yeah, we're going to have to do something. When I was appointed senator, one of the first texts I got from a friend was, you need to buy more shirts.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, it was fun. Yeah, I like to have a little fun with my look now and then. But I'm going back to not flannel Joanna for the time being.
That's good.
Yeah, but no promises.
That's the Joanna I know.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, at some point, if you want to get into the Joanna you know, I'll be rolling in like a black hoodie at some point. But yeah, you never know.
That look I remember. Well, the hoodie is the thing that I don't want to wear. That's my third shirt that I don't want to wear on air, but maybe on.
Well, maybe we'll do like a hoodie-themed episode, and we'll both come in hoodies.
We could do that. I may have to do some thrift shopping just to find things to throw on, just so when we do clips, it doesn't look like the same episode every time.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to like AI generate some, like new patterns on you or something.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think we'll do that 100%. We're going to get right on that.
Awesome.
I'm still a little sniffly, I'm seeing as we're talking. We're going out to some new channels. Want to talk a little about that? Yeah.
So There's No Way in Creamy is now on traditional television. We are on, let me see, make sure I get this right. We are on Comcast channel 1074.
Yeah.
We are on Burlington Telecom channel 15 and 215. And we are also on YouTube. We've been on YouTube for a while, but as just an audio only.
Right.
Which kind of lies low. But now we have the full video, and we look like we belong on YouTube. So there are more places to get There's No Way in Creamy on a weekly basis. We are still not on Amazon.
Correct. Good flag.
Because screw those guys.
Screw those guys. Who needs them? So last week we had the first installment of our interview with the Education Redistricting Task Force Senate leader and chair, Martine Gulick, and she was amazing. And there was also some really interesting other media out there that came up around the Redistricting Task Force. So we talked a little in that episode about the governor's statements and the Senate Pro Tem Phil Baruth's statements. And those were, they were like really critical, and I felt like maybe a little uncalled for. And there was a really fascinating political development. There's these lovely papers all over Vermont, and every time I run a campaign somewhere, I learn about like the local paper, and oh my God, we have to get in touch with the local paper and all this stuff, and that's great. And I love that. And so the Williston has a local paper called the Williston Observer. And I was quite fascinated to see that Governor Phil Scott, Republican Senate Minority Leader Scott Beck, Democratic Senate Pro Tem Phil Baruth, and Democratic House Speaker Jill Krowinski coordinated all sending pro-Act 73 letters to the editor to the Williston Observer. None of them are elected leaders for that district, so that's especially fascinating, I guess, except for Phil Scott because he's statewide. But it seemed really intense to me. It was really aggressive. And, these folks appointed the members of the Redistricting Task Force and were very openly unsupportive of their findings and, saying they failed and they didn't do their job. And I just felt like, wow, this is not a collaborative approach.
What was kind of remarkable about that is how similar in tone and content they were.
Mm-hmm.
If you played a party game where you put the authors on one side and the content on the other, you'd have a hard time matching them up.
Yeah.
Because they were so similar. And you don't see that very often in politics. Like you might see
Yes.
agreement, but usually it's agreement that's qualified trying to get concessions on some other issue.
Yeah.
This was just outright agreement across the board, which is not something you commonly see.
Yeah, and it wasn't really like playing like different angles or different constituencies that much, which is usually the parties usually approach things differently. And it's just pretty unusual. I mean, we saw this with the passage of Act 73. It's really unusual for the Democratic leadership to be, openly embracing the Republicans. I mean, it is kind of shocking to me, and I'll share with you that I had a lot, I certainly won't say who they were, but I had a lot of Democratic House members. They were really upset, and they felt abandoned and hurt, and like we don't have, Democratic leadership getting their back in the legislature, and that's a really bad situation that we're in. And coincidentally, they had a House caucus just a couple of days after that, and as I understand it, there were some strong words there.
Yeah.
I wanted to go and observe it, actually, but I was really sick, as you know,
Yeah.
so I couldn't get over there. But, I mean, it's just we're in a really – you would think with the Republican leadership of the country going so badly that Democrats would not be quite so quick to embrace the Republicans, particularly for a policy that's been so hard on communities.
It's going to be a fascinating legislative session because both parties the leadership of both parties is looking for unity as they go into the 26 elections. And this is a difficult issue to gain unity on. I mean, we've seen the Democrats have already fractured last spring. Act 73 passed in the House by a voice vote, incredibly, so we don't actually know who voted for or against it. But it was a majority of Democrats in the House, but not a huge majority.
Right.
And then over in the Senate, it was a pretty overwhelming majority of Democrats were opposed to it.
Yes.
And the only way it got through was the Democratic leadership, Phil Baruth, the Senate pro tem, and Keisha Hinsdale, the majority leader, crossed and voted with the Republicans to push it through. So there's already a division there on the Democratic side. I think the Republicans are going to have a hard time with this as well. I mean, if you look at the communities that are going to be impacted the most by massive consolidation, it's mostly the rural communities. And they are largely represented by Republicans these days.
Absolutely.
And we are seeing those communities start to question, hey, what happens if my school is no longer here? And so they're going to be hearing from one side, from their community members, concerned about what they consider to be the heart of their community. And on the other side, they have the governor who really wants this to go through and has an awful lot of power and say about whether they keep their job. And he could potentially back a primary challenger. He could potentially back a Democrat who's more in line with his philosophy on education policies. So neither party has an easy walk here. And this is not a political issue. We've covered this. We talked to Teddy Wozniak early in the session. And he was looking at it primarily from the view of his constituents. Berry City has had a rough ride through Act 60, and this represented some change. And
he made the strongest case I've heard for the bill yet.
Well, and absolutely. And if it comes back to your community, and you look, there's got a lot of representatives in the northeast corner of Vermont who rely on independent schools.
Yeah.
They're primarily Republicans.
Yeah.
And so they like this because independent schools do okay.
Yeah.
Then you've got the southwest corner of the state that also is in the same boat, relies a lot on independent schools, primarily Democratic. They also like Act 73 because it does treat independent schools quite fairly. My tiny communities out there in the islands, we feel threatened by this, our identity. Burlington feels threatened. How often do Burlington and the Champlain Islands actually come down on the same side of an issue? We heard from Erin Brady, her concerns as a representative from Chittenden County and a school board member on the largest school district in Vermont, still having concerns about what Act 73 will do. So this is not a partisan issue. And the leaders on both sides are going to have to somehow try to hold their parties together on something that is just beyond a partisan issue. It has to do with their connectivity to their community.
Yeah, it's totally fascinating because for so long, federalism and the idea of like rolling up control at the national level or the state level was sort of like the great liberal promise of, protecting people from small-minded, whatever communities. And now that we have a federal government that's, dangerous and toxic, we have to come back home. We have to realize like, wow, our communities do know what's right for us. And it's been this sort of kind of flip-flop of the parties in so many ways. But actually, You're right. It's not really partisan.
No, in fact, we've seen a fairly right-wing group suddenly come out and
Campaign for Vermont.
Yes, Campaign for Vermont. Come out and support all of the things that Martine was talking about in this interview.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time in just the study of government in general, let alone what's going to happen with this policy. The rubber is really hitting the road.
It is. That's going to be a tough session in Montpelier. I think,
Brutal.
Probably not since marriage equality or Act 60 have we walked into a session that's going to be as hard as this. We've already seen Jim Harrison, a longtime Republican, very respected, announced that he is leaving in January.
Yes, right? At the beginning of sessions. We'll have to have a special.
Hopefully we don't see a mass exodus of talented people from Montpelier. Their inboxes have got to be just piling up with criticism on how they intend to vote on this, either regardless of which way they stand. They're going to have critics. Speaking
also of how unusual and in some ways nice, but also scary that our communities are so aligned on this issue. Right. So the Burlington school superintendent and school board chair sent out a fascinating message yesterday. I don't need to tell you that usually superintendents and school boards really try to stay out of politics. And it's funny, I've run a bunch of school board races in Burlington when I was first starting out as a campaign manager. I did a bunch of them. And, then as I started to get more entrenched in the Democratic Party and I'd like come back to my school board people and they say, oh, we can't get into that. It's too political, and we have this really wonderful superintendent. Like I'm such a big fan. And we have a wonderful school board chair too. And they've both been there for quite some time now. They're not new. They're not like, new fiery, activist types who just got involved. There are institutions, both of them. And this is totally unprecedented for them. They co-authored an email that went out to the district yesterday. And the title of it is Vermont Doesn't Need a State Takeover of Education. And I'm going to read a couple segments. The administration's model would consolidate Vermont's 119 school districts into large regional districts. They have described this as a necessary transformation of the education system. In reality, it is a big state takeover of public education. And worse, there is no evidence that this forced consolidation will reduce costs or fix the cost drivers in Vermont's education system. We know it will not bring down healthcare premiums, repair old infrastructure, or support the growing need for student mental health and social services. It will not fix the staffing shortages that districts across the state are struggling to manage. It will not improve student outcomes or honor the work done through Act 127, which brought equity to districts serving students living in poverty, English learners, and students living in rural communities. What it will do is take decision-making power away from local communities and concentrate power at the state level. We cannot support a plan that takes away decision-making from communities, centralizes control, and undermines project and equitable funding. Pretty strong words for some nonpartisan municipal leaders.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're looking at going into the session. And I just think it's an extraordinary place that we're in. And the Senate Pro Tem and the House Speaker both live in this district.
Yeah, there's been, in my mind, just a lot of valid concerns raised, and those aren't being countered. And I think to have a productive conversation, which regardless of whichever way we go, we need to not ignore those concerns. They should be addressed. If the Act 73, if this plan is going to go through, it should be some effort to alleviate the concerns that have been expressed. That's the only way we move forward in a productive manner.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I really think, folks need to be coming to this less about settling a score or placing blame or
seeking a political win as we get to the
oh,
elections.
So that's huge.
Yeah,
that's the biggest one.
A major concern as you look at everything that's going on. Is it being done for the long-term future of Vermont, or is it being done to gain seats in the legislature in 26?
Absolutely.
Yep.
I keep thinking about how Amanda was telling us that Wales has a future commissioner whose term is longer than any elected leader.
Yep.
It would be so great if someone was holding us accountable to the future. Okay, so we are going to be running the second part of this interview next, and we're just incredibly grateful to Martine for taking so much time to walk through this process with us, which is confusing. And I also want to just flag for new listeners, thank you for engaging on this topic. And if you have questions or you find this confusing or we haven't unpacked it in a way that makes it consumable or accessible, shoot us a DM and let us know, because I'd love to figure out how we can do that.
Enjoy the second half. This episode of There's No A in Creamy has been sponsored by Phoenix Books. Every click has a cost. In the time it takes to hear this, Vermonters will send over $1,000 to Amazon, a company built on exploiting workers and squeezing small businesses. In times like these, our sponsor, Phoenix Books, wants to remind Vermonters to support Main Street over Wall Street this holiday season. Shop local. Shop your values.
Can you help me understand? Okay, so two different pieces of Act 73 were the maps, the redistricting task force, and then the foundation formula. What is the order of operations? I've heard people say, can we do one without the other? Can you help me understand what happens and needs to happen, how that all works?
I can. I also just want to say it's been an interesting shift in conversation, because when we started the work of the redistricting task force, the conversation was really around draw a line so we can have new districts to reduce cost, improve quality, and increase equity.
Right.
Those were sort of the three, catchphrases that were being tossed around a lot in terms of the work that we were doing. I'm hearing that is shifting recently, right? To we need the districts, we need the new maps so that we can do the foundation formula.
Right, that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, and that was definitely a shift, because we were focused on quality, cost, and equity in the work that we did. So the foundation formula, so new maps are needed, new districts are needed to sort of trigger the foundation formula, which is why I think there's that urgency right now of give us new maps so we can implement this foundation formula. But again, if we're thinking that a foundation formula is going to save us money, it means that we are taking money out of the system. We are making cuts, and I want to know where those cuts are going to be.
Yeah.
Was it the responsibility of your task force to draw the maps or just propose them, and ultimately the legislature would decide the boundaries of the district?
Well, absolutely, you're right. We were to propose up to 3 maps.
Yep.
And if you really want to get really technical, 0 is up to 3.
It is.
So,
That's true.
I mean, if, in a court of law, I think 0 might be an option.
But if the legislature ultimately had the final say on that, so really we're not behind. I'm starting to hear this is going to set us back.
Yeah.
And how could it have if the legislature always had to have the final say?
Right.
Yeah, it feels like what we call in campaigning contrived urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to set us back, because the report's going to go to the committees. The committees were always going to look at the report one way or another and decide what to do with it. And as one of my colleagues said early on in this redistricting process, and I think I'm not quoting exactly verbatim, but it was something to the effect that this doesn't really matter because the legislature is going to be drawing its own maps anyway. So that is something I heard. Senate Education will probably have some maps. House Education will probably have some maps. So, again, advisory, this is our advice. They can take it or leave it. But if it were really that important, I would have heard from leadership. And over the past 4 months, as I was doing this work, I didn't get one email or one phone call from leadership. So I was doing the best I could do in my vacuum. But yeah, I was not, I did not get any help or assistance from the folks in leadership, which was unfortunate.
That's extraordinary.
It's astonishing.
So last time we spoke, you were hoping this could be a non-political process, but
Yeah.
it does seem like the messages are starting to sharpen as we get close to the 26th election. How concerned are you that politics is going to really infiltrate and decide how we shape our education system over rational thought?
I'm very worried. All signs are pointing to right now folks in the legislature wanting a political win. And that I don't think is ever good for especially a system like an education system. I initially, said that I thought this task force, to your point about mappers, should be a group of experts. We had folks on that task force who all love and care and have worked in education in one way or another. So, of course, we want what's best for kids and families and communities and the education system as a whole. That influenced us in ways that I think were positive, which is why we came up with this proposal. But if you wanted, if what was really wanted was maps, then it should have been a group of non-political, maybe education adjacent folks who knew how to draw maps. We did this with the lens of what's best for education in the state of Vermont, and that's what we ended up with. But yes, I am concerned that this is going to end up being a political battle, and I'm sorry that that's the case, because really we should be centering children and families and communities right now, and not a political win. We all, I feel for the governor. He wants to bring down property taxes. I understand. And I know many Vermonters trust our governor. He brought us through a pandemic. He was there just about every day on the TV. And I think a lot of us grew to trust him in ways that, felt comforting at the time. He was kind of this avuncular presence that we had in our living room and our kitchen every day. But this is a whole different world of education. And as I said before, it's one of the more complex policy areas in the Vermont legislature. So it can't be taken lightly. It can't be sort of done on a whim. It has to take time, and it has to take great effort and thought. And it's also unfortunate that our Secretary of Education, who's working really hard, but she doesn't have a history of working in education. So, and I know some folks say, oh, well, she has a business lens. Yeah, but education is not a business.
Right.
And
It's
so,
a public good.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have someone who had experience as a principal or a superintendent, or, that lens of how education works. It would have been really great.
I'm glad that you flagged trust, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about trust and being able to trust our state's leadership. And I guess, you also mentioned taxes, and we want to bring down property taxes. And I think one of the things that keeps kind of stressing me out, really frustrating me about this process, is that we do need to be able to trust our government that they're being honest and transparent with us. And there is no data or evidence to show that consolidation will bring down property taxes. And yet we've already got mailers going out to districts saying, oh, Act 73 is going to bring down your property taxes. And that is not fact. I haven't seen any evidence to prove that. And I just feel like that is a violation of public trust. I really have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It would be, if there was evidence, then it would be a lot harder to argue against. There's still arguments against it.
Right.
But I just think we have to be honest and transparent with the electorate about this stuff.
Yeah, agreed. I think the one thing you can say about a foundation formula is, honestly, it shouldn't bring down cost right off the bat by any means, because that would mean that you're pulling money out of schools, which we know our schools are working on thin margins, right? So that would not be a good idea. But it sort of bends the cost curve over time. That is one thing that I think anyone could say about a foundation formula, because because the legislature is controlling the numbers, and it's not the system that we have now with the education fund. That is one thing that I think could be said. And I don't disagree with the fact that we should be aiming ultimately to a foundation formula. I just don't think it should be rushed. And I think we need to fix a whole bunch of stuff in the structure of Vermont education before we do it. And that was what the Commission on the Future of Public Education was supposed to do. But when we can't have honest conversations about tuitioning and about our private schools and about transportation, then we can't really fix the problem.
Yeah.
We can't. And there are a lot of folks who don't want to fix the problem because for them, they are benefiting. They are benefiting. The out-of-staters who move into the Stratton Mountain area to live there so that they can get a Vermont taxpayer subsidy to send their kids to a ski school that costs $55,000 a year. So this topping off, they don't want this to change. This is a very nice situation for them. We can't even talk about the salary of the head of school at some of our private academies that are probably some of the highest paid people in their regions. We're talking $350,000, $450,000 plus housing. So you may as well round it up to $500,000. My superintendent is not making that, and he is overseeing over 9 schools with a high poverty rate.
Yes.
So for a head of school to be making $500,000 in a school it's a 9 through 12 school, one school, why aren't Vermonters talking about that? Because I don't know where that money's coming from. It might be coming from your pocket.
Right.
So those issues to me need to be resolved one way or another before we can do this this huge structural work.
So one of the things that I'm trying to understand a little bit about district consolidation that sort of concerns me, a concern we heard a lot at the task force meeting that I attended where we heard a lot of public feedback. So we heard a lot of folks expressing concern about transportation over large distances. So if districts were consolidated, we could have a situation where we have students traveling much further than they do right now in difficult geography, year-round Vermont winter, just to get to and from school. And then something I think about a lot as a mom is, my kid is they're very academic. But having said that, the thing that really gets them to school every day, in their heart, is going to other, jazz band. And, they just performed in Les Mis. And, those things are, they feed them and get them to sit through Spanish class because they're with their buddy. They're going to be in rehearsal later, and that kind of all those extracurriculars, it's enrichment, right? Enriches the experience and makes them want to be in that building. And I guess if we're already talking about longer transportation distances and the costs of both the buses and the drivers and all that stuff, but then I'm also thinking, how much harder is it going to be for families to do these extracurriculars that, for my kid, and it must be for others too, actually have a not quite direct, but pretty close to direct impact on their academic performance.
Absolutely. We know that engagement is kind of the number one predictor of a student's, success, along with the quality of the educator in the classroom, right? You need to have a well-qualified, experienced teacher in your classroom that is going to make education come alive for you. But yeah, engagement is huge, and that's been proven time and time again. Transportation came up as one of the biggest issues, especially in the surveys. That was a real sticking point. And we heard some real emotional testimony from parents too around transportation, because I know some of my colleagues have said, well, they can just drive to school. And it's just not the case.
Yeah.
That is, so many of our families don't have access to vehicles and don't have access to transportation. So for someone to make that quip is hurtful, and it doesn't speak to the economic realities of our state.
Absolutely.
So as we're considering consolidation, potentially regional high schools, the transportation, and not just like how far it is, but what would the drive time on a bus be? Those are two different things.
Yep.
And there are data out there that speak to outcomes in relation to the amount of time spent on a bus.
Oh, I bet.
Longer bus rides tend to lead with higher incidences of, missed school. What's the word I'm looking for? Absenteeism.
Truancy.
And
Yeah.
truancy. Thank you. And lower engagement, just because it is just a lot of time on a bus. So yeah, we need to be, again, thinking about those things as we're doing this work.
I found that interesting. That was kind of the basis of the regional high school model is
Yeah.
start there. Start
Right.
with, we don't want any child to have to go
Right.
further than this distance
Yeah.
to get to a high school. And we may not have the buildings there now, and it may take a while to add on or build, but we can center around the idea of shortening transportation
Right.
for every kid. There were a couple dark areas. I think you went with 30 minutes. There were a couple dark
Yeah.
areas of the state where it just didn't quite work.
No.
But you covered a lot with
Yeah.
30-minute drive time to
Yeah.
a school.
It was good. And like one of the things we heard around transportation, which was interesting, was, we have these big school buses, right? And like, well, why are we running those school buses when only 5 kids are on them? We should have little vans. Yes, but we also have to provide for the possibility that all the kids who are in that area that could ride the bus might ride the bus. Do you know what I mean? So it is, again, super complicated and very important to equity and outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Krista Hewling was on with us a few weeks back, she was really amazing, and she shared with us a lot of concerns about the public monies that go into private education, and that seems to be an ongoing issue. And I'm curious what your thoughts are around that and how that plays into this. I'm from a state that doesn't do that originally, and I understand the history around why we do that in Vermont a little bit, but the fact that private schools are so unregulated here and still get public money it does seem like it does have to be factored in here.
Yeah. It does. You're absolutely right. It baffles me why we don't talk about this more and why we're not actively trying to make this a more equitable system. I have nothing against private schools. My spouse and his whole family went to private schools, and I have a lot of friends. I live in Burlington, so I have a lot of friends who went to private schools here in the city, and religious schools as well. So I have nothing against them. What I struggle with is that we send public money to private schools. It's sort of contrary to what how it's supposed to work. And we did learn in doing the work on this task force that the private academies originally came around to provide access to students, not actually to provide choice and to promulgate choice across the state. They were there to provide access to education. So that was really interesting. But yeah, I agree. I think providing or using public dollars for schools that don't follow the same rules, don't have the same policy dynamics, it's just a very bizarre construct. And I'm not exactly sure why Vermont is okay with that. And especially now that we are in an economic time of struggle and hardship. And so doing things the way we've always done them, and I heard that a lot last session. Well,
that's one of my least
historically,
favorite
right?
expressions.
Yeah.
This is how we've always done it.
This is how we've done it, and historically, this is, and the precedent is, and no, we've been asked to imagine like a future state, right? We've been asked to really think about a new way of doing things. So to keep hearkening back to the good old days is not helpful.
Right.
It's not helpful, and to constantly reference these ecosystems, which I'm putting them in quotes. Right, I'm putting this word ecosystems in quotes because I'm not exactly sure what it means, but it speaks to kind of a rarefied, special system that is for rarefied and special families. And I struggle with that because we need to have a public education system that is available to all students and not just certain students. So, yeah, I agree with what you said, 100%.
So, Martine, the last time you were on the show, it was super heavy, and I think that we did not ask you our like famous last question. So I'm glad we have another shot at it. So we have a tradition here on There's No Way in Creamy that if you go to a creamy stand, what do you order?
I love that. A maple creamy.
Maple creamy, classic.
Yeah, it's classic. My second is a swirl, vanilla chocolate swirl.
Okay.
But there are some really good maple creamies in the state of Vermont.
Do you have a place that's your favorite? No pressure.
Every place in her district.
Oh, right.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like Cookie Love. I think they've got great creamies.
Ooh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
I haven't been there yet.
Now, do you get sprinkles?
No sprinkles.
Good for
Another
you.
one for Andy.
Yeah.
No,
You
not
know.
necessarily. You don't need to gild the lily. It's good the way it is.
Perfect as is. Nice. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
And all your service to the state.
Yes.
All right, I'm keeping
I don't
it
like
together.
that smile.
No, it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited.
Mm.
Okay. Do you want to welcome folks to Last Licks?
I think they've been welcomed.
Welcome to Last Licks.
Welcome to Last Licks. Eric did it twice.
What's that?
We did it twice.
Yeah, we really want people to feel welcomed, you know?
You do.
It's important.
I don't care.
My stuffy welcome might not, be up to par.
You are powering through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a very special Last Licks today. We are doing a Hanukkah quiz, and I'm drilling Andy on Hanukkah, which is totally unfair because he didn't know any Jewish people before a year and a half ago. It's a little bit of an
I
exaggeration.
thought I was quizzing you.
Oh, do you have questions to quiz me?
No.
But how could you quiz me if I wrote the questions?
That's a good question. Proceed.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So I'm quizzing you, but this is more just like, it's okay if you get them wrong. This is just a little,
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So.
Are you keeping score? Is that what you're doing
100%.
over there?
Yes. Yeah.
You just said it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
This is entrapment. This is what this is.
Yeah. So I'm excited. So Hanukkah is my favorite holiday of the year, and it's coming up. And so I'm going to do this is more of like a PSA kind of thing, but the quiz is just the format. So kind of like Christmas has it marks a historical event, and then it has some sort of fluffier lore around it. Hanukkah celebrates both a historic achievement and a miracle. What historic achievement does it celebrate?
It was the siege. The Maccabees held out from the siege.
Yes.
Yes.
They defeated the ancient Greeks. Correct. Good job. Ding.
All right.
Okay. What miracle does it celebrate?
The oil in the lamp was only supposed to last one day, and it lasted 8 days.
Andy, you are 2 for 2.
Well, that's all I know, so
You're
I'm
killing
fearful
it.
of the last 8 questions.
Okay. How many candles are on a menorah?
Well, it's the 8 days. Is there one in the is 8? I'm going to say 8. Is it 9?
It's 9
Yeah,
because
okay.
the shamash is the
I
one
was
that lights the others.
picturing one
That's
in the
kind of a
middle.
trick question.
Yep, it is.
Yep. You're welcome.
And that was nice that you had a little buzzer sound there, though.
Yeah, I
Again,
thought about
it's
bringing in
Totally gave me off the vibe. This is just casual. It doesn't matter. And she just marked a red X next to me. Number 3.
I don't have a red pen in here. It's funny, like there's like is it Taboo that has that buzzer? And I thought about trying to find it.
Oh, yeah.
It in,
Yeah.
I decided that would be a little over the top.
Little.
Just a little, because it's all fun. It's not. It doesn't matter.
I'm having so much fun.
Okay, question 4. Is Hanukkah the biggest or most important holiday of the Jewish calendar?
No.
Ding,
it is
ding,
not,
ding.
Joanna.
Correct. You're killing it. You're killing
right.
it. Does observing Hanukkah in any way signal support for the Netanyahu administration?
I'm going to say no, Bob.
Correct. Okay, what is dreidel?
Dreidel. Well, it's a game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you spin the dreidel.
Yep.
And it tells you whether to take from the pot or add to the pot.
Yep.
And a couple other options that I need to study before your dreidel tournament.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It's like it's a 4-sided top, and you spin it, and then you have to do different things depending on.
Yours at least has the English translation on it. I actually studied the Hebrew before the last year because I didn't know
Oh my God.
what to expect.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I was prepared if I had to read the side of the dreidel to know what it meant.
Yeah.
But still, I lost to a 6-year-old.
Wouldn't make you read it like in Hebrew.
Yeah.
That would be pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, that's good. You did a good job with that one. Okay, what are latkes?
They're like potato fried pancakes, right?
Yes. Andy, I'm so proud of you.
I had no idea I knew this much about Hanukkah.
I know. Aren't you proud of yourself?
I'm pretty sure I knew 0 of it
Before me.
a year ago. Yep.
Okay, why do Jews eat donuts on Hanukkah?
Because it's fried in oil, and that's the theme of the party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oil.
Oil.
It's all about the oil lasting 8 days. Do Jews have a Christmas tree on Hanukkah?
Well, you don't, so I'm going to say no.
Correct. I mean, if you were an interfaith.
I was at a Hanukkah party last year that had a Christmas tree.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of. I guess that's
Interfaith.
like, if it's an interfaith household, of course,
Yes.
yeah, that's fine. Are there any good Hanukkah movies?
Do you consider Hallmark movies to be good Hanukkah movies?
No, I do not.
Then I'm going to say no.
Correct, Andy. You got 9 out of 10.
Wow.
So I just want to congratulate you. That means you've officially converted to Judaism.
Awesome.
Yeah, good job.
I'll tell my mother.
Awesome. I think that was a fantastic segment.
That was a success.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
Thank you all for listening.
Follow us between episodes for the latest updates on our socials at There's No A in Creamy on Instagram, Substack, and Blue Sky.
And catch us on our next episode of There's No A in Creamy, Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.